Good evening, South Mississippi. Meteorologist Taylor Graham here with your back to work and back to school forecast. And it's going to be really nice. Tomorrow morning, we are expecting a little taste of fall. And into the afternoon, while it is going to be pretty warm, the humidity tomorrow is looking fairly low. And you may have even been able to tell that today it wasn't as humid as what it was yesterday. So it's nice that even during the early part of September, we're getting just a little taste of fall. Now, at this time, it's still warm outside. We are just shy of 80 in Gulfport. Dew points that were in the mid 60s, which for this time of the year for us, that's not too bad. It feels fairly comfortable outside, and the dew point will continue to drop overnight tonight. Over the next several hours, our temperatures will steadily drop into the 70s and then even looking at the mid 60s on the coast early Monday morning. If you live farther inland, there's a really good chance that you're going to be in the low 60s starting off the day. Now, once we get into the afternoon, that's when our temperatures are going to be getting back into the upper 80s. But I'm going to go back and show you roughly at about 6:30, 7 o'clock, right around the sunrise. Yeah, inland areas likely going to be getting into the low 60s. So all in all, a really nice night up ahead. Not only are we going to be cooling down a good bit, but our dew points will continue to drop overnight tonight. We'll see dew points falling into the mid 50s. That means it's going to feel very comfortable outside, and those lower dew points, those are going to be sticking around throughout the day on Monday. So even though we're heating up into the upper 80s, it is going to be very comfortable tomorrow. Also tonight, you may have noticed that the moon looks full. It technically became a full moon earlier this afternoon, right after 1 o'clock, but it was below the horizon, could not see it at that point. We did have the moon rise this evening at about 7:16. It's beautiful. If you want to check it out, there's not too many clouds in the sky. We may see a few more clouds overnight tonight, but even on my drive back in from our dinner break on Highway 90, the moonlight was glistening over the sound. It was beautiful. So something to check out tonight. And fun fact, the full moon of September is known as the corn moon. And that's because usually during this time of the year, we would harvest corn across parts of the country. So that's why it is known as the corn moon this month. So something to check out if you're going to be out and about late tonight. And even early tomorrow morning, you may be able to catch the full moon as well. Set up right now in terms of the weather, well, that big cold front that moved through is starting to shift a little bit farther to the south. We have high pressure moving in on the northern side of that. That's reinforcing that drier air. And you may notice at times tonight and even tomorrow, it is going to be a little bit breezy. We'll keep winds out of the north and northeast, but that northerly breeze is going to help to lure in that drier air. And so it's going to be feeling, again, fantastic by tomorrow morning. And we can see that it's quite a bit cooler to our north, especially across the Midwest. Certainly feeling like fall up there with temperatures in the 50s and 60s at this point. But again, we're getting a little taste of that overnight tonight into Monday with those low temperatures, mainly in the low to mid 60s. Sky for the most part will remain mostly clear. Could see a few clouds here or there, but it does look like Monday we are going to see plenty of sunshine. Now with that sunshine and blue sky, we're heating up into the upper 80s, but the humidity is still going to be low. It's going to be a really nice day tomorrow to spend some time outside. Tuesday is a bit of a different story. We'll start to see a little bit more moisture increase from the south, and we'll have kind of a disturbance passing by generally from the east to the west on Tuesday. I'm not expecting a ton of rain, but a few isolated showers are going to be possible throughout the day, especially the closer you are to the coast. And it is going to still be hot during Tuesday afternoon with highs in the upper 80s, and with that dew point or the humidity being a little bit higher, it's going to be feeling a little bit hotter, I would say, by Tuesday. Rain chances after that, very slim. I know some of us could use some rain across the area. I went back and checked. Seems like we're about 7-8 days where we have not had measurable rain in Gulfport. I wouldn't get your hopes up too high if you've been wanting more rainfall over the next few days. Again, our next best chance is on Tuesday, and even then it's not a great chance, just a few isolated showers. Things are still looking pretty dry by Thursday, Friday, and even this next upcoming weekend. Not really anticipating any rain across the area. Now, it is going to start to get a little bit more humid once again by Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. If you want more of this fall-like weather, soak it up for the time being. It's not going to last forever at this point. Even then, throughout early September, it's a nice little treat that we're even getting this big of a drop in our dew point. So soak it up, because it does look like by the middle of the week, by the end of the week, it's going to be feeling more muggy across the area. Thankfully, the heat's not going to be too extreme, but it is going to be getting more humid. Now, like I talked about, our rain chances looking pretty slim. I would say at the very most, a quarter of an inch of rain. A lot of us are going to see much less than that, and in fact, a lot of us may not even see any rain at all this upcoming week. The overall pattern is still looking pretty dry over the next several days. This is a rainfall forecast over the next week. Not really showing a lot, maybe seeing some heavier rain offshore, but as far as over South Mississippi, there's just not a ton of rain in the forecast. What there's also not a ton of, and I'm not complaining about this, is tropical activity that we are worried about developing into our next tropical depression or tropical storm. At this time, from the National Hurricane Center, no tropical development is expected within the next 7 days. Now, we are getting very close to what we consider the peak of hurricane season, where historically we have more tropical storms and hurricanes across the Atlantic basin. Just so happens that this year, it's fairly quiet. We still have a ways to go, though, before the end of hurricane season. Now, there is some activity I do want to talk about in the Pacific. Hurricane Kiko right now is east of Hawaii. It is expected to weaken as it moves westward over the next few days, but it was going to be a close call for Hawaii. It looks like the center of that storm is going to stay to the north. However, it could cause some big waves, some big swells across some of the Hawaiian islands. But it looks like the worst of the impacts are going to stay to the north of Hawaii. And again, it looks like the system also going to be weakening. Other than that, though, again, the Atlantic, the Caribbean, the Gulf, for the time being, nice and quiet. Now, there's a good chance it's not going to stay that way throughout the rest of the month. Historically speaking, we see more tropical storms, hurricanes throughout the month of September, even into the first half of October. We can have some tropical systems develop in the Caribbean and Gulf, but just so happens that for the time being, during early September this year, things are relatively quiet. I am not complaining one bit. Hopefully we can keep that going for as long as we can, and it's still a good idea to check back in on the tropics over the next few weeks. But at least it seems like for this week we can kind of take a little bit of a sigh of relief. Now, the only hurricane that we've had so far this season for the Atlantic basin was Hurricane Erin. That was a Category 5 hurricane at one point. Other than that, we've only had tropical storms. The next name on the list is Gabrielle. Just a quick heads up, tomorrow if you have plans to take the boat out, it is going to be choppy at times, especially throughout the morning. A small craft advisory will be in effect offshore. We're going to keep that breeze out of the north and east at about 10 to 20 knots. Seas at times could be as high as 4 to 6 feet. So again, choppy conditions are expected. Sunrise tomorrow morning happens to be just a little bit later at 6:37, and a heads up too that our sunset's also getting a little bit earlier now that we're heading into fall. For your tides tomorrow, we will be seeing high tide as we get into the early afternoon. Low tide is expected throughout the early part of the evening, and our water temperature at this time still looks pretty warm in the mid 80s. A pretty quiet 7-day forecast here in South Mississippi. Tomorrow, gorgeous, nice and cool in the morning, low to mid 60s to start off the day. We're still going to be in the upper 80s by the afternoon, but the humidity is going to stay low. Higher humidity returns by Tuesday and Wednesday. Not going to be unbearably hot, but with highs in the 80s, the upper 80s, and with higher humidity, it's going to make it feel a little bit warmer. And it does look like not going to see much rain this week, and in fact, as we head into our next upcoming weekend, rain chances look slim to none, and it is still going to stay pretty warm with highs in the upper 80s and low 90s. So with that, time now is 9:33. We will have our 10 o'clock newscast coming up in about 30 minutes. Hopefully you can join us then on WLOX, not only for another update on the forecast, but also for your latest news and headlines going on here in South Mississippi. So we hope you will join us at 10 o'clock.